Now that the initial grind and sprint towards day 1 raiding has been completed, I can finally get to making some more frequent videos and reviews, and first on our list is the raid exotic trace rifle called Divinity. Divinity is a pretty unique weapon. It's not so much a great one-on-one gunfight weapon or a big damage dealing weapon, but it is a weapon that has a very cool utility to it. Its main exotic perk is called Judgment. Sustained damage with this weapon envelops the target in a field that weakens and disrupts them. So what does this mean? So essentially you aim the weapon and fire the trace rifle consistently on target, and by doing so you'll be applying a weaken effect to the enemy as well as a disruption effect. So let's talk about the details of that. So Judgment, when it is being applies a 25% debuff, and this actually also creates a very obvious marked field around the enemy in Vex style. Of course, this being a red weapon from a Vex raid, that would make sense that it fits this aesthetic, and it also applies a disruption effect. And this effect, this debuff, and this field around the enemy activates based on duration on target when you're dealing damage, not actual damage itself. So this means it doesn't matter how far away you are from a target, the debuff effect isn't activating based on a total damage threshold being met, it's just purely by the amount of time you've had this weapon on target and dealing damage. It also means though that you cannot just tap the trigger and even let go of the trigger at all, because if you do, you will have to reset the debuff that you are applying. Although it doesn't really take a long time for the debuff to apply, you just need to be dealing damage consistently and full auto from this trace rifle on target on an enemy for 0.18 seconds just about, which again is really short. Just firing this weapon for a little bit consistently on a target will most likely activate the debuff, but again it's based on sustained damage, so you do have to stay on target to keep that debuff active. This weapon does have a second exotic perk, which is called Penance. Targets under the effects of Judgment long enough are struck with a burst of damage. So this burst of damage struck about every 4.2 seconds, give or take. And as an example, in a quick test against Riven, each burst dealt 12,120 damage, again striking every 4.2 seconds. I wanted to test how Divinity's weaken effect, or debuff, whatever you want to call it, worked with another weapon, so I went into a quick test against Riven as a benchmark, and decided to try out Divinity with the Izanagi's Burden, which is a semi-relevant weapon right now, which has been used a lot in the Garden of Salvation raid. So again, wanted to test it with the Divinity. So stacking up an Izanagi's Burden times 4 stack shot with the Catalyst, of course, against Riven dealt 51,027 damage. Now combine that with Divinity dealt 63,784 damage. So shooting a fully stacked Izanagi's Burden shot with Divinity active gave it 25% more damage. However, a stacked burn shot with Hammer Strike, or Melting Point, whatever you want to call it, gave it 66,335 total damage, which is a 30% increase in damage. Interestingly enough though, a stacked burn shot with Divinity and Hammer Strike actually does more damage. So even though they are both debuffs, Divinity and Hammer Strike, they do stack together and deal more damage, dealing a total of 82,919 damage for one stacked burden shot. So what's really cool about this weapon is it's essentially a tractor cannon-esque weapon for the team that can be used at range. Of course, you do have to sacrifice, I think, a bit more damage. It's not like Tractor where you can just apply it, then swap and keep doing damage with another hard-hitting weapon. It does give you the burst damage to try and make up for a loss in damage, so we'll see how effective it is really in the long run. But either way, something like this could be effective, of course, on the raid boss, which is a farther target that you are most likely not going to be able to Melting Point in time or Tractor Cannon in time. Instead, you can use this as a more ranged debuff option that appears to actually stack with Hammer Strike as well, which is pretty cool, or I guess other ability debuffs. In PvP, it's not the greatest weapon, and I don't think I need to tell you this. It's obviously meant more for PvE and meant to be good in PvE, And yeah, in PvP, there's not much point to it. Of course, it does give you that same 25% debuff. It starts at 9 damage per headshot tick and 7 damage per body tick, but both of these, for whatever reason, get boosted up to 11 damage when the debuff is applied. So this gives it a 1.10 second optimal time to kill and a 1.12 second base time to kill, which is pretty bad. Like, that's a pretty bad time to kill overall, I'd say, especially in comparison to the other trace rifles. I was hoping that the damage burst would be cool for helping to kill supers, but it doesn't activate early enough to be in any way significant against supers. The debuff is nice, of course, to help kill supers, but I mean, I don't think it means enough considering you're still going to need 2 people, and with 2 people and the damage resistance now, you can probably just kill them with special weapons. The only time the damage burst actually made a difference was against a Titan in a bubble with Armor of Light, but I think this is a very, very niche scenario. There is one niche cool scenario that this weapon does make a difference in PvP, and that's if you buff your own damage. It's not exactly practical, but I guess it's something neat you could try, I suppose. You can apply the debuff by shooting for a few seconds or so, and then swap to a kinetic weapon or your other weapon, and deal a shot or so of increased damage. The only reason this is possible is because the debuff does last just a second after you let go of the trigger or stop firing at a target with Divinity, so again, you can use that second with a very fast swap to deal a little bit more damage of your own if you're using a different weapon. It's also interesting that the Divinity's debuff increases the body shot damage of a weapon to the equivalent of what it would do to boost its headshot damage. Anyways, that's all the info I got on the Divinity. I hope you guys enjoyed the video and hope you liked the review. If you'd like to see more content like this, I do stream every day on Twitch, twitch.tv/Drewskys. The link is in the description. And thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care.